Okay, everybody. Thanks for joining me quickly. I wanted to talk about three things primarily, dealing with the sport side of Disney and the ESPN side of Disney. Things I want to touch on. I mentioned a few weeks ago I would talk about the NBA Dunk the Halls alternate broadcast. So I have a little bit of viewership update on that. Then I also want to talk about the news that um, the ESPN and Disney led Venu Sports. Earlier this week, we thought there was going to be clearance for that to happen. And then it was announced later in the week that it's no longer happening. So we'll kind of recap that. And then I want to give an update on the viewership for college football bowl games. And then specifically the college football playoffs, because that's been a lot of questions that people have had. So, first off, to talk about the NBA on Christmas Day. So ESPN had a number of NBA games on Christmas Day, and this is for the first time they were competing with two NFL games that were shown on Netflix. So maybe some of you have heard or seen LeBron James saying, "I love the NFL, but Christmas is our day." It's not going to be that way. And then the the continued competition moving forward. It'll be really, really interesting to see what the NBA does. As far as viewership, so the five NBA games that were available through Disney, and these are across ABC, ESPN, ESPN2, Disney Plus, and ESPN Plus, they averaged an audience of 5.25 million people. So that was an 84% gain year over increase. And it was the best NBA Christmas Day performance in the last 5 years, which is really, really exciting if you are Disney, if you are ESPN, to look at the average being a 5 year high of those Christmas Day games. Also, the 84% increase year over year for viewership. That's really, really good. What started off the NBA on Christmas Day was the Spurs and Knicks game. And this is the one that had the alternate broadcast, which was called Dunk the Halls. And if anybody watched it, it was this really, really fun animated broadcast where just like they did with the Toy Story football game, the Simpsons football game, the number of NHL games they've done with Big City Greens, this was all animated and it looked like the players and the court was on Main Street, USA. And one question that I had was with the NHL games and the NFL games, their faces were covered to a certain extent. And in NBA, they were not. So one question I had was, are these going to be kind of like a Pixar-esque representation of the players, or are they going to be Disney characters? Well, they were Pixar representation of the NBA players, which had to be really, really cool for the NBA players to look that way. Um, and so it was really, really cool to see that. And then at various times they would have uh, Mickey come in, or Donald, or Goofy, or Minnie, Daisy come in, and they would play some. At the halftime, their halftime show on the alternate broadcast was a slam dunk contest, which Minnie won, which was really, really fun to watch as well. So that game drew 4.91 million viewers. And that was the most viewed Christmas Day opener in 13 seasons. So again, that's really, really exciting if you're Disney and you're ESPN. It also shows that with the competition coming from the NFL, these alternate broadcasts can be ways to keep those numbers up. 4.91 million viewers, that did not all come from the alternate broadcast. That came from the alternate broadcast and the actual broadcast as well, or the broadcast that was on ABC and ESPN as well. But um, when you look at what the NFL is doing, and you look at the fact that Netflix is trying to get into live sports entertainment, the competition is it's going to become more imperative to have these types of viewership or these types of opportunities for people to watch these games. And so that's really, really exciting news for Disney and ESPN on the NBA front. And now a special message from Cody's Inner Dialogue. Hey, Cody. Yeah, what's up, Inner Dialogue? Have you heard of everything that's happening in Southern California? Yeah, I have. The fires in the Los Angeles area and surrounding areas are very, very sad. They're very, very scary. I hope everyone gets to safety. I hope that the firefighters and the officials working on putting these fires out, are successful, and I hope that everyone in that area can be safe and with their friends and family, and that we will again be able to see the city and the surrounding areas being built back. I think that's very well said. I feel the same way. Stay safe, everyone. Yes, thanks, Inner Dialogue. Stay safe, everyone. Now back to our show. Front. The next thing that I wanted to talk about, and I'll look at my notes real quick, was the college football bowl season. A lot of the college football bowl games are shown on ESPN or Disney-owned networks, ESPN, ABC. They had out of the 33 non-college football playoff bowls, 25 were shown on ESPN. So they have a pretty big portion of the bowl games that are shown. Now, there was some fear that with the um, with the increase or the expansion of the college football playoff, that maybe non-college football playoff bowls would their viewership would diminish, and it would go down over years, and essentially people, were sounding the alarm that maybe this is the end of like the regular bowl season. Well, the 2024-25 college bowl season, um, also that viewership also increased. It was a 14% increase year over year. It was the largest audience since the 2019-2020 season. Now, and keep in mind, 2019-2020, that was pre-pandemic. And so during the pandemic, 2021, 21, 22, all of those seasons, um, people had kind of pointed to the fact that, well, it was a pandemic. People aren't really paying attention to these types of broadcasts as much as they could be um, paying attention to other broadcasts. So this is a really, really big game, the largest since that 2019, 2020 season. So pre-pandemic. So that's a good sign for college football bowl games. The biggest demographic was 18 to 49. There was a 20% increase in that 18 to 49 um, demographic. Now, if we get into specifically what ESPN did, the 25 games that ESPN showed averaged 2.4 million viewers. That's a 15% increase year over year, which is really, really good. Also, fans were consuming 12.9 billion minutes of content, and another way that they're measuring viewership and content now. Uh, there's also a note that of the 25 games that ESPN showed, 11 of the games contributed to the most watch days of 2024. So that's really, really impressive. And on ABC games that were on ABC averaged 5 million viewers, which was a 71% increase year over year. Now, um, individual bowl games, I want to point out a few. The top ones, the Valero Alamo Bowl, which had BYU and Colorado in it, and Colorado has received a lot of attention. People either being very excited and wanting to watch Colorado because of Deion Sanders and Shador Sanders and the Heisman Trophy winner, but sorry, the Heisman Trophy winner Hunter, or they wanted to watch because they maybe don't like the team as much, but as far as viewership numbers, that's people are still tuning in, and that's the important thing. The Valero Alamo Bowl was the most watched game for ESPN. It averaged 8 million viewers. That's the most watched Alamo Bowl since 1993. The second most watched game was the Pop-Tarts Bowl. This bowl was between Miami and Iowa State, and it had 6.8 million viewers. That's the most watched uh, bowl. This used to be there's a variety of bowls. It used to be the Camping World Bowl. It's the one that's played in Orlando, ahead of the Citrus Bowl, which is also played in the same stadium. But this was the most watched game of that bowl since 2008. And what's really, really interesting about the Pop-Tarts Bowl is it's a really, really fun viral marketing strategy that they employ. The mascots, excuse me, are people walking around in Pop-Tarts, like looking like Pop-Tarts at the trophy that the winning team gets actually has a working toaster in it. So at the top, there's a football. You can put Pop-Tarts in the toaster and it'll actually work. This year, the bowl got permission from the NCAA to make the sidelines look like they had sprinkles on them, much like a Pop-Tart would. And one of the most notable things is, oh, the field goal pads were also wrapped to look like packaging from Pop-Tarts. It's really, really fun. The most notable thing from the game is the winner of that game, they actually get to quote unquote eat one of the mascots. And so what happens is they wheel out the stage, and it has this huge looking toaster. The mascot jumps in or gets lowered in, and they're holding signs, and it's a big deal. And then out pops this edible cake. And that is the celebration for the winning team. The coach goes up, the players go up, and they all grab a piece of this cake. Um, and so this year, actually, they had a selection. They had three different mascots that they could choose from. And the MVP of the winning team got to choose which mascot they wanted to uh, quote unquote eat as a celebration. So again, it's this really, really fun viral marketing strategy. During the game last year's, anybody who was afraid of what actually happened to the mascot from last year's Pop Tarts Bowl, that mascot actually showed up looking partially eaten in the bowl game, um, and made appearances around the stadium. It was a really, really fun experience. I've been to a couple bowl games that I really didn't have rooting interest in. One of my favorite teams wasn't playing in it. Um, I would definitely go to this game. This would be one that would be a lot of fun to see. So that was the second most. And then the third was the ReliaQuest Bowl, which had Alabama playing in it. That had 6.5 million viewers. So big you had big brands like BYU, and then the interest of Colorado driving the Valero Alamo Bowl. You had the big brand of Alabama driving the ReliaQuest Bowl and Michigan driving the ReliaQuest Bowl. Those are two really, really big brands. But then also you had a viral marketing strategy for the Pop-Tarts Bowl, which was really, really successful, sorry. Also in FCS, the football championship subdivision, ESPN shows those championship games and those playoff games. The championship game was up it was up 132% over last year's championship game. It averaged 2.4 million viewers. A game between North Dakota State and Montana State. It peaked at 3.1 million viewers. Overall, the FCS playoffs averaged 1.3 million viewers across ESPN platforms, which is the best they've done for FCS since the 2009-2010 season, and is a 49% increase over last year, which is really, really good. Next on to the college football playoffs. These were the expanded 12-team playoff that people have been calling for a really long time. The quarterfinals averaged 16.9 million viewers. So the most watched out of the four quarterfinal matches was the Rose Bowl between Ohio State and Oregon. Now, Ohio State, major brand, Oregon, major brand, Rose Bowl itself, major brand. So they averaged 21.1 million viewers. The telecast peaked at 24.3 million viewers. It was the most watched non-NFL sporting event since last year's college football national championship. And then we had the next was the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, which featured Texas and Arizona State. That became a really, really fascinating game. It went to double overtime. The average viewership for that was 17.3 million viewers. It peaked at 23.6 million viewers, and it was the most watched pre 3 p.m. Bowl game of all time, which is really, really cool. The All-State Sugar Bowl was next. It averaged 15.8 million viewers, and then the that peaked at 19.5 million viewers. And again, remember that was postponed by a day because of the tragic events that happened in New Orleans. And then the Fiesta Bowl, the Verbo Fiesta Bowl between Penn State and Boise State averaged 3.9 million viewers, and it had a peak of 15.9 million viewers. So those are all really, really good numbers as well. Um, the fear, and I'll give more update or more information. We'll talk more about everything once the final has been played on the 20th. So in a couple weeks, I'll revisit this and talk about this. Um, the final will be between Notre Dame, a really, really big brand, and Ohio State, a really, really big brand. And so I imagine those numbers are going to be pretty high. They're going to be pretty good. So if you are ESPN, if you are Disney and you're looking at these numbers, you are really, really excited for what is happening in the future of these. You had overall, you had better performances year over year. You set records as far as best broadcasts viewership wise in a number of categories. That's really, really good. And it also is interesting when we look at the inclusion of live sports on streaming networks. Later this year, Disney is introducing the ESPN service. That is going to be the ESPN standalone service where everything's going to be online there. And we'll talk more about that here in just a little bit when we talk about Venu Sports. But you have to be really excited about what's happening with these viewership numbers and looking into the future if you are Disney and you are ESPN. Also, it shows that what they are spending for these rights, for the viewership rights, are pretty good. They're getting a pretty good deal over on all of that. So that's something that's in the positive for Disney and for ESPN. And now a message from Cody's Inner Dialogue. Hey, Cody. Yeah, what's up, Inner Dialogue? I have been invited on the solo show to talk about the last episode of The Skeleton Crew. Um, really, you have? Yeah, yeah. I was invited, and you weren't. I'm sure that's not the case. Oh yeah, yeah. Listen to this.
Your inner dialogue, no, because I know he's been trying to predict what's going to happen, and it would be interesting to see what he thinks of the final episode.
Ha! See that? I was invited, and you were not. I don't really think that's the case. Inner dialogue. Actually, interestingly, here's the full message that Stan left us.
Hey Cody, it's Dan Solo from the Solo Show. I know you've been enjoying Skeleton Crew and our recaps of the shows, so I just wanted to remind you that our last spoiler review of the Skeleton Crew will be out soon. In fact, it should be out Sunday early morning, January 19th. So just want to remind you to check that out. And can you do me a favor? Let your inner dialogue know, because I know he's been trying to predict what's going to happen. And it would be interesting to see what he thinks of the final episode.
So, you think that's an invitation to join the show? Well, he meant to invite me. I don't think so. I think he meant to tell us that the last episode of the spoiler review for The Skeleton Crew out soon from the solo show. Yeah, I mean, he definitely meant to invite me. No, I think he did exactly what he wanted to do. And anybody who wants to listen to these recaps and spoiler reviews of Skeleton Crew, listen to the solo show, episodes 172 through 179. They preview the show, and then they talk about each episode as it comes out. Good try, Inner Dialogue. He meant to invite me. No, he didn't. Invite me, Stan. Invite me. No, Stan, don't do that. back to our show, everyone. Now, to end on something that's a little bit different, uh, if you remember a few months ago, we talked about Venu Sports and Venu Sports being the joint venture between Disney or ESPN and Max, Fox Sports, that it was going to be basically an online streaming service where you could watch sports from all of those networks. So you could watch sports from ESPN, ABC, all of the Fox Sports networks. You could watch sporting events on TNT and TBS. That was quickly um, kind of brought into litigation. Fubo Sports was actually the company that filed the antitrust legislation or litigation against this merger or against this new product. And Fubo Sports, if you know, they offer, live sporting events. It's basically a way that you can watch almost like YouTube TV, or Hulu with Hulu Plus with live TV. Hulu with live TV. It's a way that you can watch sporting events in real time. And so they had been the ones that actually brought the suit against this new venture. Well, earlier this week, in a surprise announcement, Disney announced they were buying 70% of Fubo Sports, which kind of signaled that Fubo Sports was going to drop their litigation, and then this new Venu Sports would be able to move forward. Well, just a day or two ago, Disney put out another announcement that Venu Sports is no more. So there is not going to be that new streaming only sports package that includes Disney sport content from ESPN, content from Max, content from TNT and TBS, content from the Fox Sports networks. Which brings up a really interesting question for me, and this new ESPN standalone service that basically you don't have to have cable if you want to watch sports. You can now purchase coming up. It's going to premiere in fall 2025. The ESPN standalone service in a streaming service. Um, because of what has happened with Fubo Sports, and also because of what is now has now transpired with Venu Sports. And I should mention like YouTube TV, and there were some other big backers that were wanting this litigation to keep going, because it was going to hurt their businesses as well. So the announcement that Venu Sports is no longer happening makes me wonder if we are going to see the Fox Sports properties on this new ESPN standalone service. Fox does not have a streaming service. They don't have a way for their sports events and their sport content to be streamed live. That's where a lot of the NFL is. And so I've heard from a lot of analysts that they expect the NFL games to then be on this ESPN network, and a lot of the Fox properties, the Fox Sports properties, being on this new ESPN product, whatever it's going to be when it comes out. And so it's a really, really interesting question. Will ESPN represent this big plethora of what live sports entertainment can be? Because that was a big question. This is going to be an expensive per month charge for people who want to consume this. But if it doesn't involve things like the NFL, which are some of the highest viewed sports content, are people really, really going to want to go for it? Now, maybe this is actually paving the way. What happened with Fubo Sports, and now what's happened with Venu Sports no longer being an option. Maybe this will be something that pushes Fox to put their Fox Sports properties on this ESPN service, and that could include the NFL games to get those games out to streaming subscribers. And so those are the things that I wanted to touch on. As I said, in a few weeks, I will revisit and talk more about the college football playoff and the viewership of the college football playoff. I also want to find more information about the advertisement revenue that's coming in from the college football playoff. Because if you've been watching any of it, most several of the games have been more interesting. I can think of at least four games that have come down to being played pretty well, both of the semifinal games and then the two first and second round games that the University of Texas was involved in. Those were a little more interesting. They were a little more close contest. And so it'll be really, really interesting to see what type of revenue has been brought in and also those viewerships. So I'll revisit that here in the next few weeks. So thanks a lot, everybody. Have a great day.